Welcome back to Built with AI. In this episode, we're going to be talking to Omar, who is a non-technical PM who has shipped reps an exercise management product.
What if your fitness app worked for you, just like a great personal trainer would?
It's a mobile app, which can be a little bit trickier to build, but he's been able to do it using AI tools.
Proud to say I've really done none of the coding. It's all been with English.
We'll get to see behind the scenes as Omar ships a brand new feature inside of Reps and see what his build process looks like.
Here are a few clarifying questions and considerations.
I actually really like this. I'm going to give this a try afterwards because I feel like it's asking you more meaningful questions than what I get back.
I'm Colin, a health tech PM and chronic side hustler turned solopreneur. I've built SaaS apps that have made $0, hundreds of dollars, and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm excited to bring you stories of people in product design and engineering who've done the same.
Honestly, I'm complaining, but to me, this is still a miracle. Yeah. Absolutely incredible.
So I'm excited to dive in. When you're ready, I'll see you in there.
So we're talking a little bit about what you've been building, your background, all that good stuff, but maybe we'll start with kind of like your technical expertise. So do you mind sharing a bit what is your background? Are you kind of more on the engineering side, maybe more product?
Yeah, so my professional background is I'm a product manager, and I come from a non-technical background. I studied psychology in school, and I've been in the industry for a while, so I have become more technical, but I've never actually coded an app before. And so as we'll go into today, I've basically been using Cursor to build an app just using English.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I've been building this app called Reps, which is a personal training copilot. And so it's for people that want the planning and support of a personal trainer, but don't want to or can't hire one. And basically the problem is that, really good personal trainers, they're expensive. And most existing fitness apps, they make you do all the work, right? So you sign up, they tell you to pick a plan from dozens of choices. They ask you to track everything. They'll ask you to analyze charts, make all these decisions. And then, your life changes and the plan breaks down and you stop using those apps.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do was take a bit of a different approach. And the idea around there was basically, what if your fitness app worked for you, just like a great personal trainer would? And so I'm proud to say kind of the concept I'm going to share today. It's actually not even a concept. It's a real working application that it kind of does that for you. So when it comes to picking a program, you simply describe kind of what's going on in your life and it picks the right program for you, just like a great personal trainer. Not only that, but it fits it to your life circumstances. And you'll see what I mean when I show it in a second. When you start your workouts, all you have to do is lift and describe your sets and it tracks everything for you, like a personal trainer would be if they were right next to you. And when your life changes, it can adapt your plan again. And so this helps you stay on track and keep the momentum going.
Cool. So sounds like less data entry, I think is what it sounds like. Like a lot of those fitness apps, you got to key in everything manually one at a time. And then, it kind of follows along. So I'm curious, is this a hobby thing you built just for yourself or do you have other users who are using the product?
It's a bit of both at this point. Kind of in the middle of, is this a hobby project or can I turn this into kind of a full-on business? So far, we've had 2 versions of the app launch. And at this point, it's basically my friends and personal network that have been trying it out. We've had about the first version, about 20 people use it. Learned a bunch from the first version. And just this week, we launched the second version. And I'll let you know how that goes. But
Sure.
So far, I think we're going to see a lot more traction because it's solving a way harder problem, which was around, I need a plan that's not brittle.
Right. Yeah. Cool. So it'd be great to see. Do you want to do a quick demo of the app here?
Yeah. So I'll just share my screen here. What we're looking at right now is the kind of the first screen anybody sees when they sign up, which you can sign in with Google. And, it walks you through creating a program. So I'll go ahead and click on create my program. And, the first question that it's asking is how often can you lift? What happens a lot of times is when people buy programs right now, they all assume that you can lift for a certain number of days a week. There's a program that assumes you have to do 3 days, etc. So for us, you can kind of tell it what you want to do. And in my case, let's say I'm busy. I only have 2 days a week that I can do. Similarly, you can tell it how often or how long you want your sessions to be. Again, if there's a range, you want to pick something that you can actually do on a consistent basis. So let's say I want to do 45 minutes. And then you just give it your priority. Do you want to really focus on your gym performance, or do you want to leave some in the tank because you have other things going on, work, career, life, etc.? So I have a lot going on right now, so I'm going to say support my energy. And then you can tell it, do you have any kind of existing injuries? All this information is telling reps basically how to pick the right exercises for you. Let's say I have like issues with my knees, because I do. So I'm going to
Sure.
pick that, hit continue, and now it's going to basically design and pick the right program for you. In the background, we actually have about 782 different templates, and based on your questions, it's picking like the right one for you.
Nice.
So, that was like a few seconds. I obviously talked quite a bit there, but someone can finish that in basically 20, 30 seconds, and you get this totally custom program done for you. So in this instance, it's told me that, based on the fact that I can only do 2 days, 45 minutes, I have knee issues. It's picked a program for me that has 2 full body workouts that I can do every week. Again, the magic is that out of all those like hundreds of programs, we didn't put all those programs in front of you to pick. It kind of picked it for you based on that short questionnaire. So when I'm ready to start working out and actually doing the lift, I can click on start lifting. And now we're in the screen where you can actually start doing and tracking your workouts. So if you look at kind of what's on the market already, typically they have, giant forums. It's very cluttered. Obviously, that's not the case here. It's very clear kind of what you're going to do, what your target reps are. And all I have to do at this point, let's say I've just, done this exercise. I can simply press the mic button, give it permission, and then say, yeah, so I just did my first set, did 8 reps for 45 pounds. Felt really good. And it's able to understand that and log it for you, which it did here. Once you're done logging, you can, use the rest timer here. So you can rest between your sets. And then I go on to the next set. And basically it'll take me through the whole workout that it had created for me just a few seconds ago. There's a whole bunch of other things here that we could go into that I'm not going to go into. But one last thing I'll say is some people have said that they're nervous about recording their voice at a gym. So for those people, you can just simply press the keyboard icon there and, you can manually enter it as well. So that's kind of the workout screen. I'm just going to go ahead and skip to the end here and show you that I can essentially go back and forth between exercises as well. Because, when you're at the gym, sometimes the station is taken, and this is all based on feedback from people using the
Right.
app that, sometimes stuff is taken, so I want to be able to move around. I can also, swap an exercise. So let's say I don't want to do planks. So let's say I want to do crunches. There we go. We do have crunches. So, and I can tell, I want to do this forever, or I just want to use this one time. I'm just going to exit out of the workout preview and go to the last section, which is, let's say you are, I had completed the workout. It's like a week in the future and I'm back. A lot of the other apps, when you open them up, they don't really make it clear kind of what the next workout is that you're supposed to do. For us, you basically go back to the app URL and it essentially tells you, very simply, based on your program, this is the next workout for you and you can get started going. If for some reason your life circumstances have changed and you want to adapt this program, you can simply click on your profile icon and then get it to create a new program. Or you can swap out and do like a different workout as well. So that's what we have in a nutshell.
I'm curious, like a little bit on the back end. So
Yeah.
this right now it's a website, right? Not like an iOS app, right?
Yeah, it's so I built this on a framework called Expo, which none of this I knew about. So, I
Sure.
just had a conversation with Cursor and I said, it's a fitness app. I want to eventually have an iOS app, but I also know it's a pain to get into the Apple Store, etc. I don't want to go through all that trouble. So I want a framework that lets me build a web app so I can get this out faster, get feedback from people. When I'm ready for an iOS app, I want to pick a framework that lets me easily do that. So I know the kind of the marketing for Expo is that it makes that easy to do. I
Yeah.
haven't actually tried it yet, but in theory, I can basically take this web app and easily also build a iOS app out of it.
Right. Yeah, yeah. No, Expo's great for that. I mean, they even have tools to help you like publish your stuff into the marketplace. So it's not just the conversion tool, but so you're
Amazing.
using
Yeah.
Expo, which means JavaScript on the front end, right? It's like a React application, and then off the back end, so like for storing stuff or user accounts, what are you using there?
So I'm using Supabase. That's basically seems to be the one platform that people on Twitter are using. So I kind of
Yeah,
trusted that and went with that.
sure.
To build it itself, I used essentially Cursor and the OpenAI and Anthropic models. In terms of the actual design, what I've been doing is so I'll actually kind of have a conversation in Cursor. I'll kind of outline an initial idea in terms of kind of what I want the app to be or what I want the feature to be. And then when I'm have an initial very loose idea, I will actually go to V0, which is a Vercel tool for prototyping. I think you've talked about that actually. So
Yep.
that I find really awesome because that whole world of a product manager writing out the requirements has changed. Now I can basically take some loose set of requirements and actually try to build it in a very rough prototype fashion in VO.
Right.
So I found that extremely helpful to go from just writing into something that can actually replicate what the actual flow of the full app would be, but at a very low kind of resolution. So that's been really good to kind of prototype and figure out different versions and different user experience. And once I'm kind of happy with the flow there, then I took it to my designer, aka my wife.
Yeah.
Hey Ivy, love you. In case you're watching, and she basically took those designs from VO and turned it into kind of this awesome actual visual design.
Got it. Okay. Did she
Yeah,
do that in Figma or somewhere else?
yeah. So she did that in Figma. I actually have trying to figure out a good flow to go from Figma to Cursor, and the main issue is when you're building an app from scratch. There doesn't really seem to be, at least the ones that I tried, an easy way to do that. What I ended up doing is I thought a bit like an engineer, which is just build like a basic version of the app without any of the visual elements, just get it functioning how I want it. Once I kind of had the actual user experience built out, functioning, I was essentially taking screenshots from Figma and then screen by screen, I would tell Cursor, hey, this is how the app currently looks. Here's a screenshot of how it looks in Figma. Analyze the differences, describe them to me, and then let's work on actually making this app look identical to the Figma mockups. And it's still kind of a painful process. Like I have to
Yeah.
prompt it a million times, but that's kind of the process for me.
Got it.
Yeah.
And yeah, is it typically accurate on the screenshots or do you have to like clean it up a lot?
It's actually surprisingly accurate, and I think it's because my wife designed it in a way as well, where it's relatively simple, so it's like easier for it to pick up. Like a lot of this is kind of getting into the, I guess, nitty gritty of it, but the components are SHAD CN, so it's like
Yeah.
a framework that I guess these LLMs understand, and then the design, it's fairly simple, so I was able to pick up. But the things that it struggles with is you'd be surprised. It's like elements or spacing here and there where because I'm not a engineer or a product designer, I didn't really know how to talk to the LLM. So as long as I kind of framed my conversations to it in terms of the problem or what I'm trying to accomplish and didn't overly dictate how to get there, that seemed to be a better approach in trying to
Got
like
it.
build this up. So like to make it more concrete, I gave it like specific font sizes initially on the design, and then when I go from my laptop to my actual phone, it looked terrible. And so it's like, oh, you actually gave it instructions that weren't ideal for a responsive app,
Right.
things like that.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. That's really interesting actually, because usually like what I hear from folks and what I try to do is be very specific with the requests. But I think that's a really good example of like you can also in some ways leverage the AI to help you do that, right? So you could ask a question like, what is the best way for me to make this responsive? And it might come back with like you should make the font sizes based on the size of the viewport rather
yeah,
than like fixed pixels, right? Or something like that.
exactly. And like frankly, like I don't want to manage all that. like the AI, the LLM is way smarter at all that than me. So I always have to kind of keep reminding myself that treat it almost like a engineering colleague, where
Right.
I'm trying to describe kind of what the screen should function and maybe even how it looks like, and then it's kind of guiding me on what's the best way to build it. So I'm kind of like managing the building rather than doing any of the coding. And this entire app, both versions, I'm proud to say I've like really done none of the coding. It's all
Yeah,
been
yeah.
like with English.
Yeah.
So
That's super cool.
yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm wondering, do you want to show us a little bit about like how you build, so maybe like a quick demo of shipping a small feature?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. So the feature that I'm kind of thinking about building recently is uh, a way for people to get updated target reps and weight when they go back into the gym. So, for example, let's say I've already completed kind of this first workout, and last time I did it, I kind of did, 2 sets, 45 pounds, 2 sets, etc., etc. Basically, what I want to happen is the app to tell me what to lift and how much. What happens right now is I have to like check my history to see what I did last time, exactly how many reps, exactly how much weight. And instead of me having to look it up, calculate, and do all the math, I want it to tell me based on like some simple rules. Here's exactly how much you should shoot for in terms of the repetitions and at X weight. So what we're going to build is what's called a double progression rule, which basically means we're going to guide people to complete a certain rep range. And then once they can successfully complete a certain rep range, to increase the weight that they can do the rep range on.
Yeah, is this going to be a back end and a front end change, or just the front end? Like, are you already storing the history and then?
It might be both, because so what we're doing right now is we're storing the program templates, which is simply a collection of workouts. And then within a workout, we're storing a list of exercises. And for those exercises, when it generates a program for you, it will prescribe kind of a rep range. So on the screen, for example, I have seated cable row. When I created the program, it suggested that rep range. And in lifting terminology, there's a thing called double progression, which is basically a rule for how you want to progress, how you're performing. And the idea is you want to first increase how many reps you can do at a weight once you can actually do the whole rep range. So once I can go from 8 reps to 12 reps at 45 pounds, the next time I do the exercise, I can increase the weight and I start again at 8 reps. At the end, once I can hit 12 reps at that bigger weight, I can go back down to 8 reps, but at a slightly higher weight. So it's a pretty simple rule, and I think not really a front end change. It's mostly going to be like a back end thing, I think, where it looks at what you did last time and essentially tells you what to do. So what I will do here is I'm just going to start asking Cursor, hey, I have a rough idea of a new feature. Give me a very short PRD of a few sentences so we can define what we want to build. So keep the PRD outline very short to start. Put it in, I just have a folder called My Documents where I kind of have all my working notes as a markdown file. And basically, like, it's going to generate a template for me based on the feature.
So do you have like a defined pattern for PRDs already, or does it, like, how does it know what content to put in here?
I don't have a defined pattern. I'm basically just like telling it to do it for me right now. So yeah, this is like really simple to start with. And okay, so after user finishes their first workout, the app does not give clear next step weight or rep targets, causing confusion and reduced retention. So this proposed solution, add a simple double progression engine. And sometimes it'll get into all this technical speak, but very simply what we want it to do is for each exercise, look at the prescribed rep range, that is available in, there's a workouts table. When a user is able to hit the top end of that rep range, increase the weight by 2.5 to 5%. So for example, if the rep range was 8 to 12 reps at 45 pounds, once they are able to complete actually 8 to 12 reps at 45 pounds for 2 sets, once they're able to complete all 2 sets for 12 reps at 45 pounds, the next time they do the same workout, they should be given a rep target of 8 reps and a target weight of whatever 45 pounds times 2.5%
Sure.
is. Yeah. I don't really overthink the success metrics at this point, so I'll just delete that. Trying to think like edge cases and stuff. So, you could complicate this as much as we want. So I'm going to tell you, like, don't worry about plateaus, etc. for now. Help me think about any other edge cases I might be overlooking. And all my product management friends are going to hate me because I'm doing the problem last, but really the main problem we're trying to solve here is we don't want users to remember or calculate what reps and weight they should do the second time whenever they repeat a workout. Okay, so that's kind of like a rough PRD, and at this point what I'll do is I'll rely on the LLM to review this and act like a thought partner. So
Right.
I have some rough notes here about what we want to accomplish with this feature. Review it and let me know your questions. And oftentimes I just keep it that simple. All right, let's see what it does.
And I saw you kind of like dragged that file in, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, is that just so it kind of focuses on this file, right?
Yeah, so it actually already had it kind of selected in its context window, I guess, up here, but it's just a habit that I have of just dragging it in. Okay, so here are a few clarifying questions and considerations. Rep range, source, and granularity. Is every exercise guaranteed to have a numeric range? Yeah, it is. So, it's got like a bunch of questions here. I'm just going to quickly answer them here. So, yes, every exercise has a prescribed rep range. Review, and I have a document here. If I can find it, which basically lists out how the current Supabase database is structured and all the tables and etc. So I think might be table something. Yeah. So I've basically said, hey, review how the database is structured. How should we handle ranges expressed as single numbers, 5 or percentages? So I'll basically say ignore ranges expressed as percentages. We also don't prescribe rep ranges as single numbers. They are always expressed as a range, 6 to 8 reps, etc. Does hit the top end mean all working sets hit the top reps or an average? Yes, all working sets should be performed for the top end of the rep range. We do not want to use an average. And I realize like a lot of people like to use voice to do this kind of stuff, but for me, I find just I function better and think better with writing rather than going back and forth on voice. I also haven't found like a really good voice transcription tool. So if you have recommendations, I don't want to like talk
Yeah.
shit about the tool that I've used, but
For sure. I just started using one called Willow.
okay.
And it's pretty good. I mean, it's quick. It is exact transcriptions though, at least the way I've been using it. So if I start talking about something and I change my mind partway through, like it transcribes that whole thing. And so very similar to you, I actually find sometimes I introduce stuff that I don't actually really want to say, and I end up editing the transcription before I send it.
Yeah.
So typing works just fine too. Yeah.
Well, the annoying thing for me, this is a bit of a tangent, but it's like they're just slow. So I'll say something and then I have to wait for it to finish, and then I lose my train of thought. Versus
Right.
if I'm just writing, I can kind of stay there. So I'm just going to quickly answer some of these. So
Sure.
is the 2.5 to 5% jump per exercise type or user adjustable? Oh, that's a great point. So it's saying, if we should use a smaller percentage for isolation exercises, bigger one for compound. And I actually was going to say, don't worry about that for now,
Sure.
because it actually can get really complicated. And I don't want to worry about that. I just kind of want to get like a first working version of this feature working.
Yeah.
For equipment constraints, if the user previously said use dumbbells, but the next program weight isn't available. Yeah, so that's a good point. Yes, for dumbbells, they are typical. Actually, even for, I'm just going to keep it super simple. So the problem it's highlighting, which is awesome, which is typically in most gyms, dumbbells are only available in increments of 5 pounds. A lot of times people want to go up an increment of 2.5 pounds. This is kind of the nitty gritty, but what we're going to do is we're going to say ignore that, leave it up to the user to decide. I know that's kind of against the problem I said here, but
Sure.
we're just keeping it simple. So
Yeah. Makes sense.
just keep it
It
simple.
did a pretty good job though with the edge cases. Like I didn't think of those previously.
It's really good with edge cases, and honestly, I love it because, I could have come up with all these edge cases. It might have taken me 30, 60 minutes of thinking about it.
Right.
Versus I'm already having, if this was an actual feature, I mean, we are going to build a version of this, but I'm not going to build it as fast as we're doing right now.
Sure.
All these edge cases are awesome, and I can kind of just take this as a starting point for what the actual full PRD would be. And it's
Right.
awesome. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just starting 60% done as opposed to starting from scratch.
Right.
If the user fails to hit prescribed reps at the new weight, do we immediately drop weight next session? Yeah, so I mentioned kind of don't worry about plateaus. So I'm just going to remind it. It ignored that. Don't worry about plateaus for now, or even failures. If a user swaps an exercise mid-workout, do we treat it as the same progression bucket? So look, it like knows how the app functions. It's quickly looked at the code base, I guess, because I showed the swap functionality earlier. And I'm going to say yes, treat it with the same progression bucket. How should we handle sessions that were started but never completed, missing sets or partially locked sets? I'm going to say treat sessions that were never completed, or ignore sessions that were never completed. Err on the side of being conservative. Some rep ranges have lower bounds, 3 to 5 reps. Is the rule still a reset to 3 after hitting 5 reps, or do we treat rep ranges differently? Smaller weight jumps. The rule is reset to 3 after 5 reps.
Yeah, so what's interesting about this to me is like I don't actually not for better or for worse. I don't follow the same pattern where like I ask it for edge cases. I usually spend a bunch of time on the purity up front and then drop it in and kind of say go. And I actually really like this. I'm going to give this a try afterwards because I feel like it's asking you more meaningful questions than what I get back. So that's cool.
Yeah, so it's a great discussion because I think the way to think about this is the LLM is like there to help you. So I'm gonna ask it in a second to like update this PRD, and then I'm gonna review it and edit it again and think about it. I think like now that these LLMs are getting actually smart, you should rely on. I mean, if I'm starting to rely on them more,
Yeah.
and you know, like most product people, you think you're really smart and you want to be in control, but like learn to trust the LLM. It's smart and fast, so you can kind of get there faster. Is what I'm starting to do. Like, especially from I'm professionally a product manager, and we're kind of trained to like create these like really detailed PRDs, and it's easy to kind of stay in that mindset. But I'm not saying you don't need to do the detailed PRDs. You're just using the AI agent to be a thought partner along the way. And so, yeah, I find that like really helpful. Okay, so per user overrides. Will users have a UI toggle to adjust increment size rep range? This is hard-coded in V1. For success criteria, I think we want users to be more satisfied than they are now. They have to remember and calculate rates manually. All right. So now I'll say something like, based on the answers above, update the PRD. Let me know what questions you still have so that you are crystal clear on what we are trying to accomplish. Once we have the PRD, you'll create a step-by-step implementation plan. Do not start building. We are still creating the plan. So I find O3 tends to not do this, but if you're using the Anthropic models, they love to just like rush to build.
Right.
And I think that's like, there's benefits to that when you're trying to do something, but within Cursor, I've just built a habit of telling it, don't build like.
Yeah, this is my most common prompt. Make a plan, don't write any code. I read those words almost every single prompt.
I'm curious.
Make a plan, don't write any code.
Yeah, I'm curious like which model tends to be your go-to. Like I use O3 pretty much for everything.
Oh yeah, I use Sonnet 4 mostly, and sometimes Opus, but mostly Sonnet 4.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely have gotten like more into the Claude models. Like I think I'm just familiar with how they work at this point. And so yeah, stick with those ones for the most part.
When I first started using Cursor, I guess around January, Claude 3.5 was my go-to, but then 3.7, they did something where it wasn't as good. And now I'm like, I have a hard time trusting it now.
Sure.
And O3, I just find it's just surgical.
Yeah.
Where to the point I was like, wow, this is actually intelligent. Or at least that's the impression I get. Okay, so it's gotten a way more fleshed out PRD. Let's just quickly read it. So users currently have to remember to calculate their next workout's reps and weights. This manual math creates friction. Yep. Implement a double progression engine that operates automatically for every exercise stored in the table. All right, let's look at the rules. So you can see here, like, it's kind of fleshed it out more, added more detail. Rules, rep range, always a range. Each exercise has a prescribed range. That's true. Start at the lower bound, for example, 8 reps. When all working sets hit the upper bound in the same session, increase the weight by 2.5. Yep. After a weight bump, reset target reps to the lower bound and repeat. For lower rep strength ranges, hitting 5 reps on all sets triggers the weight bump. Yep. All right, so one last thing I think is, like, this success metrics is kind of meaningless at this point, so I'm just going to delete it.
Sure.
I think the one last thing I just want to remind it is you often have to tell it how I want to communicate the rep ranges and the weight to the user. So I'll just say, like, this looks good. Just want to confirm if we'll show the target rep and weight to the user on the bullseye screen. I basically wanted to show up on this screen as updated.
Sure. Makes sense.
So we'll just tell it that. And, you know, I can tell it, like, go to this file to find it, but oftentimes I'm just lazy and it's able to look it up on its own.
Yeah, I do the same thing. A lot of times when I'm debugging, I'm a lot more specific with the files, but for like feature planning, I usually just tell it to read the code and try to find the relevant files. Just throw that in there. It usually does good enough.
All right, awesome. Update the purity with that detail and add a detailed implementation plan to the bottom of the PRD. In terms of you know, things like testing and whatnot, I'll be honest, that's like where I still don't know much. Things like unit tests, integration tests, you know, I obviously kind of know it at a high level, but I haven't figured out how to do it in Cursor.
Yeah.
That's one thing I'm going to have to get at. And also, people, I guess, use this thing called Playwright, which you can automate a lot of manual testing with that. And
Yeah.
I need to figure out how to do that because this app is now getting like complicated to manually test. Like at this point, anytime I do a change, I manually test everything.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying. I would say on the unit test side, you do have to be a little bit careful. It's almost like different or similar behavior, actually, what you have here. Like if you just ask it to add unit tests for your project, it will create a bunch of useless tests.
That's
so like
what I've heard, yeah.
They test something, but there's no point in them existing. And so you really have to go through a very similar situation, which is like, what is the case that you're trying to test? And then ask it to create tests for that case, which means you have to think about it a bit. And you probably use it as a thought partner as well. Like, you know, what are the probably like most obvious test cases and like kind of iterate through a plan and all that stuff. But yeah, very similar like process here. You're not going to be able to just be like add unit tests and it sets up a test suite for you. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so on the implementation plan of things, usually I'll just like take a look at this at a high level. I don't pretend to read all these details, I'll be honest, most of the time. And so it is talking about like doing unit testing and all that, and I usually just delete that.
Yeah.
Same thing with analytics and success metrics. We don't need that for now. Just want to double check the API and front end changes. All right, cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and tell it looks good. Let's start implementing step by step. And I'll just drag this back in here. And then it does its thing.
How much time do you spend planning versus like the actual implementation?
I don't spend as much time on the planning as I do on the implementation. And I'll often sometimes have to go through, basically like I get it to build a first version of the implementation based on a plan that I'm, 80% happy with. And then I spend a ton of time doing manual testing to see like exactly how it works. I'm not sure if that's the most efficient way to do it, but that's kind of how I've gotten to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty common, to be honest, for folks who are like vibe coding to do a lot of manual testing. Setting up test suites that are good is still work. You'd probably take, the length of time of like 3 features or something like that to instead of building those 3 features, you're going to set up your test suite. And then from there forward, it gives you leverage, right?
Right.
But you also have to maintain that test suite because as you add more features, you have to also add tests for it. So it can be a little bit cumbersome. I would say like at the beginning of a project, it's not worth doing if you're unsure if you're going to ship it at all, or whatever. You can always add tests later. So
I'm glad you brought that up. That was basically the challenge that I was having because as I was building a new version of this, I wanted to get the app and the UX to a point where I was happy. And I think now that it's a little bit more stable, I need to figure out a way to like reliably test it and not break things whenever something new is added to the app. On that note, what I've done in the past is actually, some of these newer models don't struggle with this, but even like three months ago, if a certain file was getting to be too big, it would hallucinate and make all kinds of mistakes. Right. And so I learned all about like modular code and things like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
So like breaking up the files actually helped a lot, and I basically trusted the LLMs to figure out the structure of that on its own. Like I didn't dictate much of a solution there.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because you end up learning kind of by osmosis, right? Like some of these ideas about like, setting up your code in a modular pattern, or like refactoring into smaller files that are more reusable and all that kind of stuff. Like all these engineering practices that they get pushed on you by the LLM, right? Otherwise, you run into problems.
Yeah, well, like even at like say 1,000 lines, it was struggling. I think 3 to 6 months ago.
Yeah,
Now these newer models, they don't seem to be as
right.
bad. But I'm sure as this app gets bigger, I'll have to. I basically spent a couple days making it modular, and that was not fun because
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
basically just like clicking, okay, it's still working, continue. Oh, you broke it here, that kind
right.
of thing. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, refactors in like real applications are also very hard. They
I'm
could take a
sure,
lot more than 3 days, right?
of course, yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, it's one funny thing about this is like when you're sitting waiting for it, it feels like it's a long time, right? But like
Yeah.
in kind of context to how long it takes otherwise, it's so fast.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm complaining, but it's to me, this is still a miracle that I can just talk in English and build this thing.
Yeah,
Like, it's incredible.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
I'm curious. I like. Have you found that you've changed anything at work as a result? Like, now that you have a better understanding of like some technical stuff, has it changed anything for you or not really?
Yeah, so at my last company, when I was still there, I think the challenge with all these tools is companies haven't still really changed how they work. Like, it's
Yeah,
easy for me to do this on my own, but for me to work with Cursor on my team at my last company, it would have meant, well, actually, so while I was still there, what I did do was actually create prototypes. Like I had started doing that. I think that was really useful because instead of just having a set of writing, I could be like, hey, here's what I mean, and
right.
people have reactions to that, and it's way easier to have a discussion about any rough prototype versus writing.
Yeah,
So that was kind of the big change that we had started doing. Wherever I end up going next or doing next, like I think that's still something I'm learning. Like I'm sure people are trying to figure out a way to collaborate with others in Cursor and all that.
yeah. I
Um,
find this kind of funny. I use this story a lot, but like one time I wrote a spec that was pretty long. It was probably like, I don't know, a dozen pages or something. And mostly because it was for a backend system that was very complicated. It was like this end-to-end flow that everything had to be precisely correct, kind of orchestrating between multiple products because I was building something outside of a legacy product that had to talk to the legacy product and then also
yeah.
get status updates back. Anyway, it was a very long period. The engineer who implemented it, like the very first iteration that she came back with, it was like completely wrong,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, "What happened? Like, why is this so off?" And because I went back through the PRD with her, and I was like, I don't understand how we got so far away. And she literally told me, she's like, "Oh, I didn't read that part." She just didn't. It was just too many things. She just didn't read the whole doc. She just started working and was like, I don't know, it'll just work out, I guess, or something. But anyway,
that's
just to go
that's
back
a,
to your point,
that's a classic
yeah,
PM story, right? Like you write all this stuff and nobody reads it. So
right,
that's a hilarious story. Like I relate to that so much. I
yeah,
do think this new world of prototypes. I don't think the writing will be replaced, but I think just a prototype with the writing is just so much more effective. Like I was
yeah,
already seeing that, and I think also a tool like VO would be really useful for that.
right,
It's just gotten so good in the last 3 months or so at making it easy for you to spin up prototypes. So I actually just like start there before I even bring it into Cursor for like a more complicated feature. Yeah, so what's
yeah,
it
yeah,
saying? First implementation step done. Okay. I did tell it to go step by step.
sure. Oh, one other question people frequently ask me, so I'll ask you is, what do you do while you're waiting?
um, that's a great question. So I often feel like I'm wasting time while I'm waiting. While it's taking a few minutes, sometimes I'll go off and kind of create a new set of notes for what I wanted to do next. So I'll have multiple tabs open in Cursor, but I think Cursor isn't super reliable with two tabs yet. Like sometimes
Yeah,
I've noticed it's done some hallucinations or does weird stuff with version control on GitHub. So I've stopped doing that. So oftentimes I'm just like waiting, to be honest, or browsing
yeah,
Twitter or whatnot
right.
in
Yeah,
between.
me too. It's
Yeah.
It's very difficult because you still have to pay attention, right? You don't know when it's going to end.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to be paying somewhat close attention so you can fix issues or like, chime in if it needs something else. But yeah, it's interesting. Also, one other quick question.
Oh, so it's implemented it. So I don't know if you noticed, but it told me to increase the reps by 1.
That's cool.
Yeah. Because I didn't complete the full sets. So that's why it's correctly keeping the weight the same. But it noticed that I've done 1 rep already last time. So
yeah,
beautiful. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you like how you learned about GitHub and stuff, but maybe if you want to show a quick demo, we'll see if it all works together and then we'll go into that part after.
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty simple. This is the demo already. So imagine last time I did this workout, I actually did 8 reps at 45 pounds. Fast forward a week later, I'm going to repeat the same workout. I don't want to have to go back and look at the workout history. I want the app to tell me exactly, just the same way a personal trainer would. You're doing this today to keep progressing.
Yeah.
And so based on the PRD that we had built, it told me you're going to do 9 reps instead of 8 reps. And I can kind of just trust what's on the screen and go from there. If I were to kind of finish this whole, let's actually try it. So let's say, just for the sake of example, I actually don't remember what the reps were, but let's just say I did 15 and I did 45. And I'll just do another rep, another set real quick. All right, so that's completed this exercise for now, and I'll kind of skip to the end of the workout, and so I'm just gonna hit finish. The workout is done. And what I'm gonna do now is pull up the same workout that we just completed. Imagine it's a week later. What it should do is it should have more than 9 reps as the target for the seated row. Oh yeah, so actually because I hit the top end of the rep range, it's actually increased the weight, but guess what? This is really weird. So now I have to go back and be like, actually, I want you to pick like the closest 5-pound increment, like round up or round down essentially.
Right.
And this is kind of the whole process. So I'll ask it to build something. I'll go manually test it. I'll play around with it, notice something's off, and then we adjust.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It obviously worked, so that's great.
Yeah.
I think the planning steps kind of were pretty critical there. Like no bugs, which is nice to see.
Well, I mean, this is kind of, I would consider this a bug, and it did what the plan said.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. It's a bug more in the thinking than it was in the implementation, right?
Yeah.
But that's all right. Cool. 1 or 2 last questions before we wrap up. Just one is like, what's your plans for this app? Like kind of where you're headed with it, and then just where can people kind of help you out or find you online?
Basically, what's next is to keep making this smarter. So kind of the vision of this is it becomes like a really great personal trainer in your pocket. And so we want to make it easy as possible for people to adapt their plans and keep the momentum going. And so that involves making it even smarter than it is today. Second part is like telling more people about this app, because I'm actually really proud of the work that went into this, and I think it'll help a lot of people get stronger without all the work and effort of other apps out there. Where people can find out about this app and try it out, they can go to myreps.ai, and they can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter at Omar Ganai. So it's at Omar Ganai on Twitter, and if you search my name on LinkedIn, you can find me there as well. Any feedback people have on the app or the episode itself should be fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Omar, for hopping on, and chat again soon.